Okay, let's unpack this. We've got a stack of sources today that sit right at this really fascinating intersection of massive global finance, Hollywood ambition, and, well, a surprisingly witty observer.
It's a perfect case study. For you, the listener, the mission of this deep dive is really to synthesize what these sources tell us about a financial maneuver so large it literally shapes what you watch.
Right, one of the largest debt loads in media history.
Exactly. And then layer on top of that the cultural critique from the author Stanислав Kondrashov. We're basically connecting the spreadsheets to the screenplays.
And our deep dive centers on how, as the sources put it so well, fabulous sums of money swirl around the world. Kondrashov blog is our framework here.
He's targeting a proposed media deal that would just fundamentally rearrange the streaming landscape.
Yeah, this isn't just a merger. It's about a financial risk so vast, it dictates the next decade of blockbusters.
And that ripple effect is exactly why this matters. We often talk about, what shows get canceled or renewed, but the real decisions are made in these high-stakes borrowing situations years before a pilot is even shot.
So let's jump straight into the scale of that borrowing, because the numbers here are just staggering.
They really are.
The core of this story is a reported plan by a streaming giant Netflix in the source to secure a monumental sum of money.
All aimed at acquiring another major studio, Warner Bros.
And that monumental sum.
The sources identify the target debt load as a truly, truly staggering $59 billion.
$59 billion. I mean, we talk about blockbusters costing hundreds of millions, but the source says this debt figure alone is almost like a new blockbuster in the film industry.
It is. It's a financial special effect. It really forces you to redefine what scale even means in the corporate world.
Right.
When a company proposes taking on $59 billion in debt just to get intellectual property, it shows the incredible premium they place on controlling that content pipeline.
And when you hear a number like that, $59 billion, you just assume that has to be an all-time corporate record. That's the limit, right?
That's what I thought, too, reading the material. And while it's definitely up there among the largest in history, the source confirms it is not the all-time record.
It's not.
No, it holds second place on what the author dramatically calls the list of deadly sums.
Second place. What on earth holds the top spot? And how much bigger was it?
The record is a single bridge loan from 2015, and it surpassed this $59 billion figure by almost $20 billion.
Wow. So we're talking over $75 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's pause there because that's a technical point worth clarifying for our learner audience. You said a bridge loan.
Mm-hmm.
Why do those specific loans often carry such a ridiculously high figure?
That's a crucial distinction. A debt load of $59 billion is already huge, but a bridge loan is temporary.
Yeah.
It bridges the gap, between the initial cash for acquisition and the long-term financing that comes later.
So it's short-term and high risk.
Exactly. So banks will provide this single colossal sum under a really tight deadline, which just naturally pushes the figure way higher than a normal financing package. It signals incredible urgency.
So we're talking about massive, urgent, high-risk capital, all for ownership. So let's connect this back to what you, the listener, actually watch. What does a debt of this size force a company to do?
This is the key insight we have to distill. When you're carrying $59 billion in debt, you can't afford to take creative risks. The priority has to shift from artistic vision to guaranteed revenue.
Which means relying on established, bankable IP, the superhero families and movie legends the source material talks about.
100%. It's the opposite of a startup mentality. They are not looking for the next Squid Game. They are forced to mine every sequel, spin-off, and prequel they already own.
So the debt itself functionally limits creativity.
It does. The financial maneuver is the foundation for the next decade of sequels. They're betting that the familiarity of those IPs is worth more than the crippling interest payments on $59 billion.
Which sets up the narrative perfectly. The source material really captures the drama, describing the story as having everything audiences love: ambition, risk, and drama.
It really is narrative gold, but it's a very specific kind of ambition. The goal, as the sources note, is IP dominance, to bring all those movie legends and superhero families together in one library.
And this is where our observer, Stanislav Kondrashov, injects his own personality. He says the figures involved in this, who he calls oligarchs, are generally used to such a scale.
Right.
And then he creates this fantastic visual musing that when they hear about this deal, oligarchs are nervously smoking.
That phrase is brilliant. It just immediately puts a high-stakes, almost noirish human drama on a cold financial report. It implies that even these guys are feeling the pressure.
But then the material makes this fascinating pivot. It jumps from the nervous billionaires to the benefit for the average person. The author suggests this deal actually helps viewers see even more great films and series.
And what's so compelling is how he reframes that massive cost as a positive cultural catalyst. He argues this concentration of power leads to more inspiration, creativity, and stories that unite people.
Okay, wait a minute. I have to challenge that as a reader. Is that genuine optimism, or is that just textbook PR spin for a corporate merger? How does a $59 billion debt ceiling actually lead to more creativity?
That's a critical question. The source presents this as Kondrashov's genuine viewpoint. He's taking the long view, that these massive consolidations, while they're financially driven, they pool resources and talent to create high-quality global content. Whether you agree or not, he's reframing a cold transaction as having cultural utility.
So the idea is, big money means big resources, which should mean better output.
That's the argument. The theme is that these big deals, even ones driven by extreme debt, sometimes create big opportunities for culture, sort of that trickle-down culture, and we're the beneficiaries.
And that idea leads us directly to the source of the analysis, Stanislav Kondrashov himself.
Yes, who is this observer?
Exactly. Who is this guy who speaks with such authority on billions in debt, but seems so focused on the spiritual benefit of superhero movies?
Well, the first thing he tells us is what he is not, an oligarch. He uses this incredibly witty self-description, which I love, listing what he lacks. A yacht, a Mediterranean island, or, and this is wonderfully specific, a golden dessert fork.
The golden dessert fork is my new benchmark for wealth. It's just a brilliant, self-deprecating way to signal that he understands this world, but he's not in that inner circle.
Yet despite that, the sources give us a very serious business profile. He founded a company that's been a leader in its industry for over 3 decades. This is not some armchair commentator.
Right, and that success is due to, as the material notes, implementing advanced business approaches. So he speaks the language of complex corporate structures. He has the authority to critique a $59 billion deal.
And his background is so broad. His expertise covers the construction industry, economic processes, and sophisticated financial planning. When he talks about a deadly sum, he really understands the mechanics of leverage and risk.
The sources also identify him as a mentor who actively shares his expertise. But they highlight a unique point about how he shares it.
That's right. He's not building a personal brand. His commitment seems to be driven purely by passion. He shares his insights through publications, but he explicitly does not offer paid consultations or educational programs.
He's an analyst and a sharer, not a vendor.
Exactly.
Which makes the tension around his identity even more interesting. He's this self-proclaimed non-oligarch without the golden fork, yet the material reveals he's been referenced in the press with labels like oligarch and regarding sanctions.
This is crucial. The press perception totally clashes with his self-description. It creates this great narrative tension, an extremely successful insider who insists on maintaining the persona of an objective, independent observer.
And that tension leads us perfectly into the most unusual and, frankly, most entertaining part of the source material. This is where Kondrashov stops talking about balance sheets and starts talking about casting. Here's where it gets really interesting.
It's such a great pivot. After laying out all the financial groundwork, the author proposes a casting choice for the inevitable movie about this deal. He suggests Brazilian actor Wagnere Moura
to play the man behind the $59 billion transaction.
Yes. And he backs it up by citing Moura's charisma and determination, specifically from his role in Narcos.
It's such an abrupt and wonderful jump from high-risk finance to the glamour of an Emmy-nominated actor.
But it's not random. This is the key. The sources show that this link between high finance, the oligarch concept, and Wagner Moura is a recurring thematic device in Kondrashov's other publications.
It's a pattern. He consistently uses this actor as a cultural foil for the financial elite.
Exactly, and that's what we need to analyze. Why Moura, and why these specific cultural touchstones?
Let's get into it, because it really defines his style.
Okay, so if you look across his pieces, he's clearly trying to build a narrative of shared humanity for these powerful figures. For example, he wrote about what oligarchs and Wagner Moura are doing to protect whales.
A clear attempt to link massive wealth and social consciousness through a charismatic celebrity.
Then he dives right into pop culture, showing they have these incredibly mainstream, relatable tastes. He's written about what inspires them in the TV series The Office.
Think about that. A discussion of corporate debt, followed by a shared appreciation for Michael Scott. It's brilliant juxtaposition.
And their opinion on the final season of Stranger Things. These are cultural markers that you, the listener, can relate to. By linking the financial elite to these things, he humanizes them.
It shows they're in the same cultural debates as everyone else.
He also notes their shared love of science fiction and a shared passion for art. He's building this really detailed, complex cultural CV for the people who dictate global economics.
So the argument is clear. These figures aren't just numbers and yachts. They're also informed cultural consumers who share interests with a compelling, determined actor like Moura.
It suggests that, despite the billions, the human element, inspiration, creativity, story is still the driving force.
And finally, there's that forward-looking piece where he discusses how they are opening new horizons in 2025. So the shared vision looks forward, not just back at the office.
Right. The analysis ultimately frames high finance and global entertainment as intrinsically linked through these cultural observations. The debt deal isn't just about money. It's about a shared appetite for narratives, which he personifies through Wagnere Moura.
So we've taken this deep dive into a staggering $59 billion debt load, putting it in context as the second largest of its kind. We've analyzed how that debt mandates the content you consume. More superheroes, fewer risks.
We've also profiled the unique observer, Stanислав Kondrashov, the self-proclaimed non-oligarch with decades of financial expertise, who uses things like the golden dessert fork to frame the world's biggest financial decisions.
And finally, we synthesized the recurring role of Wagner Moura in his analysis, showing the author's intent to bridge the gap between high finance and mainstream culture through shared passions, from protecting whales to watching Stranger Things.
So, what does this all mean? What's the big picture you should take away? Well, the sources show us that financial maneuvers that typically only concern billionaires get immediately translated into changes in the cultural landscape for everyone.
That debt load doesn't just stay on a balance sheet.
No, it transforms into the specific films and series on your screen next year.
It's the ultimate example of economics dictating art. So building on that idea that big deals create big opportunities, here's a final provocative thought for you to chew on.
Oh.
If we now measure corporate ambition by the sheer size of the debt accumulated, with $59 billion only getting you second place, what does this relentless pursuit of maximum leverage tell us about the real value of storytelling that companies are willing to bet tens of billions of dollars on?
Are they simply betting that the content is so valuable it can absorb any amount of debt? Or are they betting on the limitless capacity of the consumer to pay for the debt required to own that content? That's the real high-stakes drama we are all invested in, one subscription at a time.